Janine is a technical writer located in chilly but sunny Calgary, Canada. She stumbled upon this career with an English degree and raw determination to make code in front of her work. And stayed because she gets to be a different kind of puzzle-solving nerd every day. When she isn't working, she enjoys being in the mountains, swing dancing, knitting, and other things octogenarians also enjoy. She hasn't told her cat, however, she now works at Datadog. Janine Chan, everyone, with her next talk, 7 strategies of an increasingly technical writer. Janine Chan, everyone. Oops.
Thank you so much, Jerome. What a joy and an honor to be here in front of everybody. It's been so cool to watch the staff and the volunteers do such incredible work, to see Vanessa and Dennis just working so hard. I know, look at him, working his absolute fingers off. So thank you so much. What an amazing thing to be a part of. I'm here to talk to you about 7 habits of increasingly technical writers. My talk isn't just for technical writers. It's just a bunch of things I noticed people doing, whether that's tech writers, instructional designers, developers, just neat people going from good to great. And I thought I would talk to you about how I've seen that happen. I like to start these things. This isn't one of those habits. It's just something that I remind myself to do. Let's become friends. Let's give you a reason to listen to me. So yeah, let's give you just a little bit about me on top of that bio. I live in Calgary, Canada. I like to go hiking a lot. Sometimes it looks like this, if I'm very, very lucky. More often, it looks like this, and you might need some snowshoes under you. I talk so much about this cat, this is Bernie, and these slides are usually kind of awkward because most of the photos of me look like this. So that's an idea of the vibe that you're getting right now. And this talk exists because I fairly often get some LinkedIn messages asking me for career advice, which are always welcome, and they often look pretty similar. They look at my career progression and they go, "What is this?" And that's a very fair question. I graduated at university with just an English degree. I didn't have a ton of technical skills. It was mostly Shakespeare-based and making really specific things in Microsoft Word happen. 3 years later, I got my first junior technical writer job, which was really, really lucky. I kind of had some technical-ish awareness, mostly of the things that I didn't know how to do. An indeterminate number of years passed. Last year, I got a new job as a senior technical writer at Datadog. Whoops. And they had a part of the interview process, a code test. I passed it, and they're like, "What happened in the middle? What did you do?" And I think it kind of might be frustrating that I don't have a great answer for that. But I think what did I do isn't necessarily the most important question here. I think that there's an underlying question of what makes a person technical, and this seems to be the underlying question in these messages. Oftentimes people ask me, is there a course that I took to learn technical skills? Was there a book that I read that I would recommend? Do you become technical when you know how to do something, like when your commit history stops being embarrassing? That never happens. I am so sorry to inform you. It really doesn't. It can't. Don't wait for that. Is it when you know how to code? What does it mean to know how to code? How do you know when you're there? Is it when you know how to make the site that you put your docs on? Is it when you just have oddly strong opinions about text editors that you can talk about for so long? In my case, is it monospace fonts? Look at those pretty Fs. Or is it when you have the ultimately clacky keyboard that you can annoy your coworkers with when you think they're cutting out on Zoom, but the audio is still there? And all of these things for sure can be present in a technical person, but I don't think that's really what we should be looking at. I think that there is one secret. That's my hot take. And it's teaching yourself how to learn. It's teaching yourself how to teach yourself things. That's all you really need to do. And when you've got that as a habit, when you find it fun, That's when all these technical skills just kind of come to you, and it's much easier to teach yourself. So let's talk about how to do that. I'm going to grab some water first. No heckles, wow. Thank you, that was amazing. All right, the first habit I want to tell you about is don't essentialize any lack of experience that you have. This happens a lot, and sometimes in the first line of a message somebody sends me, somebody will send me the sentence, "I am not technical." And when people do that, the operative verb there is am. You know, you're making it about yourself and your identity. You're saying that I, as a person, am not technical. And when you do that, when you make something part of your identity, you make it really difficult to change. You're saying, like, I am short. That's not going to change. I can't hope to change that. I know that, but it's not the same thing with skills. People just kind of box themselves in mentally into a space. I encourage people not to do that. Instead, I encourage them to phrase things like this. I can't do this particular thing yet, where the verb there is doing something. It's a very specific something, so you still don't discredit anything else that you are really good at. You're just saying, there's this one thing I don't know how to do. And then we build in yet. We build in the word that reminds you that it will come with time. There's nothing about you that makes it impossible to learn. It's just not there yet. But that's okay. That's a completely natural thing. You might have heard this referred to as the growth versus fixed mindset, and I think that's exactly what it is. You just need to make sure that you give yourself mental room to grow and that you don't put people into buckets like technical people or non-technical people. Everybody has the capacity to learn. There's nothing about you that makes it impossible. The second habit I have is to redirect the sense of overwhelm into a sense of curiosity. We've all been there. Maybe you've got a big customer event coming up. You have to write a long guide about a feature that you've never seen. You're the point person on it. Maybe you weren't expecting it. This is huge and scary, and you are allowed to feel those overwhelmed feelings. I just want to make sure that you don't stay there, because I think when you spend some time being overwhelmed and you just kind of stay there, it just turns into this overwhelm spiral. The deadline gets closer. You remain too overwhelmed to really get some meaningful progress. You get more overwhelmed. That is your prize for all that thinking. That kind of sucks. But instead, if you spend time curious about something kind of cool happens. It becomes kind of fun to pursue information, to collaborate with people, to ask questions, to get answers. It means that time spent being curious means that you get knowledge and you get progress, you get your docs written, you get to sleep and eat and see your family much better. A big part of this process, I think, is being able to break your big knowledge gaps, your big indeterminate questions, into smaller ones so you can manage more easily. So if you were wondering, how does pie work? That's a bigger question than how does the crust work? How does the goo work? How does the hot box you put it in? You can tell this is not a food talk. Break it into smaller pieces. It's going to be easier for yourself and for the people who are asking your questions. Speaking of questions, now that you've got these specific knowledge gaps, you can turn those into specific questions that help other people help you. And that's the key to filling in those knowledge gaps and getting writing. When I tell people this, oftentimes a concern is that they're going to bug their colleagues. And I want to take some time to remind you that being good at getting help actually makes you a better colleague. It helps people understand where you're coming from. It improves your credibility because you're willing to talk about what you do and don't know, and helps people trust that when you're telling them something, that they can trust where that information is coming from. It also is a nice reminder you're setting an example of being a human being at work. It makes you a really good colleague if people can see you modeling asking for help. And I'll also talk to you about how I ask questions. I have a fairly structured method of getting information. So let's say I'm writing a message in Slack. I'll usually go through a couple of steps that go like this. I'll start by explaining the situation that I'm in. How did I get there? explanations about why I'd be looking at this. Sometimes it can be kind of surprising. Here are the things that I've already thought about. So maybe if somebody is going to give me an explanation, they don't have to start all the way at the beginning. Here's where I got stuck. This is often a very humbling step, but a very important one. Here's what I'm hoping to learn from you. So maybe I've got a specific question about a piece of the UI, but maybe I'm also hoping for some context, some history behind it, what we're planning to do next. I want to be really, really clear about how this person can help me. I'm asking you in particular for a very nice reason. Some people look at this and they go, wow, manipulative. It's not meant to be. I just think that everybody's a human being and they like to hear that maybe their teams have been really helpful to me in the past. Maybe I just think they're really cool or what they do. It's just always nice to have a reminder. And in a similar vein, here's an acknowledgement that I appreciate your time. We all have a very finite amount of it. If somebody is spending some of it helping me out, I think that's very nice. I'd like to go on a little tangent here about the sort of soft skill part of what it means to be a good colleague, because I've worked with a lot of different personalities, and I find that people often get in their own way for some pretty predictable reasons. So I want to talk about what that looks like. I've got a little bit of a hot take here. I think that you need to have your reliance on other people and your reliance on yourself in good balance in order to go, like I was saying earlier, from good to great. I find that if you're over-reliant on other people, it's really easy to edge into self-doubt, in which case maybe you don't chase after the answers to your questions enough, maybe other people need to hold your hand a little bit. It's totally fine to rely on other people. You just want to make sure that you're doing it to a healthy degree so that you're not doubting your own agency. I've also seen people rely too much on themselves. You can edge into arrogance. You don't want to do that. You want to be a nice person. You don't want to push away other people's attempts to help you. You don't want to make them feel belittled in any way. You want to make sure that you trust yourself, but you don't push other people down as a result. But what's really cool is when people have these imbalance. I think it's kind of a magical thing. When you rely on other people just enough, you've got a sense of humility. You can take in advice from other people. You can take in knowledge, and you can incorporate that into what you already do know. And you can be confident when you rely on yourself enough. And you can chase down those answers. You can try things. You won't feel encumbered. When I was making this, I kind of informally called it the How Not to Be a Jerk slide. I don't think it's fully that. I think that it's partially your relationship to yourself, but also when I think about why I've done well in tech writing, I think it's also because being nice goes a long way. I'm really jokey in Slack. You might have noticed. That's just, I can't help it. I'll make emoji of people's pets. And when people want to work with you, that's a really cool feeling, and it does take you far. So just be cool. Easy. More water. Applause for cool. I like it. Thank you. Habit number 4 can be a little bit daunting, but I think that it's the most important one because I really think that you learn by doing. You learn by tinkering. So find a safe way to try your code. Don't test anything in prod. Talk to somebody who understands your setup. Make sure that it's nice and local. Nobody has to know what happens on your local machine. And nobody has to see your error log. That's between me and my laptop. And maybe like some poor soul who works in IT. But just start trying things because you never know what mysteries you're going to solve. I think that this is really the key to teaching yourself new technical skills. I'd like to talk to you for a little bit about this guy who I found in a video, really great. This is Benjamin Zander. He is the conductor of the Boston Philharmonic Orchestra, basically one of the most illustrious musicians you could possibly imagine. And in this video, where I became aware of him, he was teaching a teenage student how to play the cello, which is incidentally also Zander's instrument. And they were doing it in front of a room of people, kind of like this one. And inevitably, the student got nervous and made a couple of mistakes. And so I'd just like you to think about what somebody of Xander's caliber might say to a student who is screwing up in front of people, and what you might say to yourself when you screw up. Because what happened in this video is he says, hey, I noticed that you made some mistakes, and when this happens, I recommend that you do this. Go, how fascinating! You can see he does it with his whole body. It's the cutest thing ever. But it was an adorable game changer for me because I think that a lot of us have this sort of just sense of self-recrimination when we make mistakes. Maybe we should have known better. Maybe we think that it's not okay for us to make mistakes, but totally okay for other people to do it. But this made it fun. This made it not just acceptable, but exciting. Fascinating. It's way more fascinating when somebody makes a mistake. Anybody can play a piece of music perfectly from beginning to end. Don't quote me about this. This is not a food talk. It's also not a music talk. But only you can make the mistakes that you make. That's what makes it human. And then you learn something, and then you can move on. It makes it fascinating. I was thinking about why I liked this so much, and I think the answer is this. It was totally decoupling that sense of shame that comes when you make a mistake. And I think that's kind of magical when you do it. I think that makes you a little unstoppable, because then you don't have to spend time feeling bad about doing whatever you did. You just get to keep going. I'm not saying that you should just make any mistake all willy-nilly. I didn't check to see if there are any surgeons in here. Keep them low stakes. Keep them in your little local dev environment where people don't need to see that. But you can just keep going. You can move on mentally. You can move on with your investigation. It doesn't have to be a big thing. And for me, that was really, really cool. When you do this, it also helps you build up a body of evidence that you're capable of teaching yourself new things. When you're first getting started in any career, it can kind of be intimidating because you don't have that body of evidence. Every mystery is new and scary. But the 50th time that you do it, the 2000th time that you do it, you get to look back and go, oh yeah, I know how to do this. This is fine. I've seen worse. I've seen worse is a really fun motto. My fifth tip is to notice how many people you admire are in the same boat. This is really the part where I'm addressing those of you who feel a lot of imposter syndrome, like I sometimes do. So I've got a couple questions you can ask yourself when you're feeling this. Is anyone born knowing how to do the thing? I've talked to a lot of people with exceptional babies. I find many babies exceptional. I think very few of them can do the job that you and I do. I'm going to say no. Probably everybody who knew how to do a cool thing learned how to do it. They just did it before you. Do really amazing people experience imposter syndrome too? Even to this day, I am shocked when I talk to a coworker who feels imposter syndrome, even though I think they're brilliant. So the answer is all the time. Of course they do. There is no correlation between somebody's brilliance and how they feel about their abilities. Do those same brilliant people have amazing stories about the mistakes they have? Oh my God, do they ever? I always recommend, if you're having a coffee chat with a colleague you really admire and they seem a little superhuman, ask them nicely if they have any stories about screwing up. Chances are they do. They've screwed up way worse than you have, and it's hilarious. And one day you too will have those stories and also be able to help people. I always encourage people to pay it forward. One of the things that I love about Write the Docs is that we're all here to learn from each other. We don't have this hierarchy. We've got the vets and the newbies. Everybody here has something to teach and something to learn from each other. Pay it forward. You never know when you can help somebody. My sixth tip here is don't let perfect become the enemy of good enough. I think that this is a field where we tend to attract people who are really detail-oriented and might have an edge towards perfectionism. I want to make sure that people are reasonable with what they expect from themselves and can let go of that expectation so they can embrace the good enough. The first thing I want to tell you here is that you don't need to be an expert to be helpful. Oftentimes, docs that are written by experts in their field are way harder to read than somebody who's just learning it with you, because somebody who is not an expert will understand maybe the audience better, will understand what jargon they don't know, will be able to explain things in simpler terms. It sometimes can be really, really helpful not to be an expert. So you don't need to know everything. You can just be a couple of steps in front of your user. That can be really, really helpful too. Your work doesn't have to be perfect to really help somebody. And this can be a bit of a hot take too. Sometimes a typo goes out. Sometimes a screenshot is a little bit out of date. Have you noticed that nobody dies when that happens? You don't have to spend that extra time to get it from 80% to 100% necessarily. I think all of us know what it's like to work with too few resources, too little time, too few people. Sometimes you just need to put out something that's going to help somebody, and you have to let go of the idea of it being perfect, and that's okay. That's great. It's fascinating. And that means you get to celebrate the small wins. That means you get to celebrate when you've answered a little mystery for yourself, when you've got a first draft, when you've got a really good review from somebody, when you've applied the review. These are all cool things that you did. You get to celebrate them. You don't have to wait until your whole guide is out and you get to sleep. All right, more water. My seventh habit here is the one that's a little bit difficult, but I think in order to be intellectually honest, it's important to talk about it. It's to learn to love this process and to know yourself well enough to know if you can't. I wouldn't be surprised if there's somebody who's listening to this talk or maybe listening to the recording and thinking, this sounds awful. Because not everybody loves the process of feeling like you know nothing, asking a lot of questions, putting your answers into a thing, and then going right back to not knowing anything. This is tiring and stressful sometimes, and not everybody loves it. It's a particular subset of nerd that likes it. So just know what kind of nerd you are. I want to acknowledge that teaching yourself takes time and energy. It takes time and energy that you might not have depending on your life. You might have health concerns, you might have child or elder care to take care of, you might have any number of factors in your personal life that means, I want my work to be easy. That's totally fine, that's valid. Go for easy work, you're allowed to do that. Different people find different kinds of work rewarding, not just the type of work that you do on a day-to-day basis, but also the environment that you do it in. I think it's totally fine to say, hey, whatever I'm doing, even if I'm really, really good at it, doesn't mean that it's right for me, doesn't mean that I want to do it. So I just really tell everybody that you should know yourself, know what you need, and then prioritize that. It's easy to say when the market is better than what it currently is, and when people typically have more choice than they might have now. I just think that you should try to make the best choices that you have in front of you in order to make your life easier. That sounds really simple, but it can be hard to remember. Okay, anytime I tried to write a conclusion to this, it came out really sappy. I don't know if it's the Canada or what, but we're going to go with it. It's me. Thank you. I want to acknowledge that change is really hard, and some of the reasons behind why it's hard. It's so much easier to keep doing what you're familiar with, what you've always done. Keep doing it for another day. That's much more comfortable. It is really hard to change what you usually assume about what you're capable of. Changing that can feel like a change to your identity, especially because work is such a big part of our identities. That's tough. It's also much easier to focus on what's in front of you and what you don't know rather than how you have changed in the past, so you can have a distorted view about the change that you're capable of. And it's really hard to admit that you were wrong. It's a bummer, but I think we should. I think it's really good for you. It just sucks. But I really do think that change is a really cool opportunity, because every day is an opportunity to become a smarter, kinder, more compassionate, more inclusive version of yourself than you were 6 months or a year ago. And then you get to be excited about who you're going to be 6 months or a year from now. It's a really cool opportunity, and I think also a responsibility that we have to ourselves and to the people around us. the last thing I want to leave you with is the fact that being able to change is really, really my favorite thing, and also a really challenging thing, but also my favorite thing about getting to be alive. Getting to be on this planet here means that we have the chance to change ourselves, and in doing so, the world around us. And as the world is changing in some ways to be a lot scarier or worse than we want it to, we also have the opportunity to get really stubborn about changing ourselves to be better. So let's do it together. Thank you so much. What an honor to be here. Thank you. Cheers! Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you so much, Janine. It's always a pleasure to hear you talk on stage and be here with you. So thank you again for your presentation, and thank you for letting me feel that it was okay to say the wrong word for the beginning of your talk and say strategy instead of habits. So I've accepted that now and take that as a small win for myself.
Fascinating, right? Thank
Demonstration,
you, Jerome.
live demonstration, everyone.
We're doing it live. That's the exciting stuff. That's way more interesting than everything going right.
Yeah, it's really magical. Like the point you said about your mistakes are the human in you, and I think that like when you're down, that's a really important thing to take. We're down in anything outside of technical writing, and yeah, it's an important adage I think I can move forward with.
Yeah,
so a lot of great questions here. Anonymous at the top again, but we'll go with the next one. Brooke Wayne here asking a great question. If you were hiring a tech writer, which habit would you emphasize for? And is there something that you would look for in the shape of that for an interview question?
Oh, I love that question. Let's see if I can remember everything that I put in my slides. I think the tinkering is really the thing that comes up for me the most at work, I think with the greatest frequency. I think all of them are important. They're all my favorite children. But when I have evidence of somebody being able to just play around and try new things and to not let themselves get discouraged, and then to try it again 4 more times until they've got some working code, I think that that's somebody who can demonstrate that they've got the resiliency and the nerdiness that we all look for.
Yeah, and then as a good follow-up from this, here we've got, what's something that you've tinkered on that has taught you a lot?
Yeah, at my last job, I was implementing Docs as code. I was saying, hey, DocuSource seems neat. Let's try it without figuring out how to do a lot of the things you need to do. And I learned a lot by being in too deep to turn around and just thinking, I've got to do it. And the nice thing when you're creating a whole website is you get to touch every little piece and you get to debug every little piece and figure it out. So I think the bigger the project, the more moving parts, the scarier it is, but also the more you have to learn from doing it.
Yeah, and it sounds like when you do have a lot of control over that, you know, it's you that has control over it. You can make it the way you'd like to.
And if somebody sees something weird in GitHub, well, they know where that came from.
It's only, yeah, it's...
No such thing as a non-embarrassing commit history.
So kind of pivoting into different questions here. You know, earlier I talked about when there's negativity going on. How do you deal with burnout or feeling maybe undervalued if you're either a lone writer or on a team?
I was a lone writer for a while. It's tough. I think that oftentimes those feelings come from really, really valid places, and I don't want to tell you to think yourself out of them because it can really suck when you feel like you're not being valued. It can be exhausting. It can make it hard to want to try. I think it's really important to take time away from work, to remember where your self-worth comes from. It doesn't come from work necessarily. I think that it shouldn't, but that's a decision that I make for me. Try to remember where self-worth comes from your ethics as a person, from the friend or family member that you are. You are so much more than the person you are at work. And then to make decisions about your work where you can prioritize what's important to you. So maybe you're like, okay, I'll stick with it for a little while. Maybe it means I'll start looking for something. Maybe I'll start the awful process that is networking. Yeah, it also depends, I think, on whether you think that you can change things in the environment that you're in, or if you think that the only thing you can change is where you are and maybe trying to remove yourself from that situation. So it's tough. I think that I don't want to tell people, no, don't feel burned out. That has never worked. I don't want to tell people that works.
Yeah, no one wants to be told not a thing, right?
Have you tried calming down? That's not how that works.
This next one is a fun one.
Oh.
There is an emoji attached to it,
Yes.
and I'm going to do my best here to try to create the emoji, but I'll do it with gestures as well. What's your favorite text editor?
Currently, I'm pretty boring. It's VS Code. There are so many good add-ons. I was using Atom because there was like this combo simulator for old-timey video games. It was so impractical because the longer you typed quickly, the more it would shake and there'd be a little counter of characters. And it would eventually make you angry and motion sick, but it was so adorable that I did use Atom just for that for a while.
You get a paper bag next to you for it, just in case it's a little too much motion
We
sickness.
suffer for our art, Jerome. And now in my VS Code, some of my coworkers here, and they've seen me when I share my screen, I've got a little add-on that adds some kitties into VS Code. It's great. VS Code Pets, you can waste time on that. I don't waste time at work on that.
Thank you. So now, back into like your day-to-day here.
Yeah.
Do you have time? Is there enough time
Yeah.
to learn new things while you're at work?
Yeah.
Or, do you sometimes use some of your free time
Yeah.
to dive into something new?
It's a great question. I think it's a really relevant question that I totally forgot to mention. Yeah, there are appropriate times to try to spend time teaching yourself, and there are times where it makes absolutely no sense. So when you're under the gun, you just need to get the docs in. You make yourself a ticket for later, and don't think about it. Right now is not the time. You need to be heads down just typing words. But when I'm trying to estimate how long a project is going to take, I like to build in a little bit of futzing time. And sometimes that can come off as just not working time. That's not what that is. But time where I can experiment a little bit, I can try some things out, I can ask questions from people, I can set up meetings with PMs or engineers. It's basically learning time, and I think in tech writing, usually there's some degree of learning, and I think trying to be strategic about what that is can mean that you've got a lot more learning opportunities in front of you than maybe you initially realized.
Yeah, as like a follow-up to that,
Yeah.
and it kind of disappeared from the questions here,
Yeah.
but I think it's a great question where there are a lot of folks working in documentation here, and there are a lot of habits that you'd built. What do you think is kind of the unifying or general pattern of trends that you see among technical writers in terms of their personality? Here, like,
Yeah.
there's so many wonderful folks,
Yeah.
and what does that kind of come to the top for you?
Yeah. I think it's the fact that learning is fun and doesn't scare you. I think that there's a real love for a sense of uncertainty, which, I mean, not everybody has that. It's a completely normal and value-neutral thing. If you want certainty at work and you don't want to have big looming questions, I think if you're writing documentation and you need to pick things up enough so that you feel confident writing about them, that takes a lot of it just takes a lot of confidence in yourself and the things you do know to embrace what you don't know that much. And I think that letting that not scare you, letting that be fun, and still feeling like you can pursue the next thing and the next thing and the next thing you don't know about, I think that, again, that makes you kind of unstoppable.
Yeah, and kind of, I think as another follow-up to that,
Yeah.
well, let's see here. Oh, I'm trying to find it. Well, when you have so much that is happening like that, how do you kind of track or like give yourself that metric to say like, I've done these great things, and what do you do to sort of like cheer yourself up or demonstrate like your
Yeah.
success
Yeah.
using these habits? Like, are the metrics or?
Yeah, I am terrible at keeping track of metrics when I don't have to. I think sometimes people just have a running. Do you remember Rolodexes of things that you know?
Rolodexes, yes.
Oh, we're so old, Jerome. You just kind of remember what you did last. You've got a toolbox. That's maybe a better metaphor for people who aren't me. This is also not a tools talk. But to remember your skills, they're always there. And sometimes it's a story that you tell yourself when you're building up that body of evidence of your work. You're going to say, hey, maybe there was a problem that looked a little bit similar to this on the surface that prepared me for this big mystery that I'm trying to solve now. So I don't know. Sometimes it comes down to how you assess your own skills, how comfortable you feel doing things, and sometimes it's just the narrative you tell yourself about how you've grown in the past.
And I think the question that I had tried to summarize and then lost and then found again
Nice.
is more of, like allowing yourself to take credit. And I think that's
Yeah.
like a wonderful phrase. So thank you again to the person who had put that question. And I think that's a great way to allow yourself, right? It just seems really hard to do when you're
Absolutely.
like working against all the things that have built up to like your struggles.
And when you have a big backlog of work, it's so easy to focus on what you don't know yet. It can be really easy to go, cool, I'm an expert on some tiny thing, and that took work, and to give yourself credit for the work that went into it.
This audience has got some great fun questions as well, so we'll go back to those.
Yep.
Oxford comma, what are your thoughts?
Yes. Yes. So easy to please. I could have lost them on that one.
If silence happened there, that would have been pretty easy for, our YouTube folks. And then now another fun one is, how clacky is your keyboard? Are we measuring in decibels?
If anybody knows what, I don't know how to pronounce the brand, Kailh, box whites. I think they're like the blue switches, very satisfying and clicky, completely inappropriate for in-office environments, great for just me and my cat and my shame, incredibly loud, incredibly satisfying, highly recommend, just away from other people.
This fun one's a bit of an inside joke, and I think it'll be pretty good, but how often do you celebrate small wins with cheese?
Okay, so on my laptop there's a sticker, and it's got a cheese and a grater and the phrase "never say when." You know what? I reject that premise. Anything relating to cheese is a large win.
Large win, you heard it here.
The audience loves cheese.
Yeah.
They're my people.
We've got time for one last question
Awesome.
here. How do you know whether subject matter experts are thinking you're asking silly questions? Do you get feedback on that?
I think that if you explain yourself well so that somebody understands the question and they still think it's a silly question, maybe it's an issue that belongs to the person who's asking the question and not you or your question. I think there's only so much you can do to mitigate that reaction. Silly questions still need answers. Silly questions are still incredibly fascinating. So I think they can deal, and we can all help each other out. And I can double down and ask sillier questions. I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah. Janine, thank you so much for your time
Thank you,
today.
Jerome. Thank you all. So good to see you.
So